Stay until the end for a special thanks from our sponsors. The art you're seeing is not commission work, but you can message me on any of my socials to maybe be the next commission featured in a video. Hi, hello, and welcome. I am a giant anther dog and definitely not an ancient forest creature. Coming to you to rant. This is a script. I'm just not good at writing them. General disclaimer before we get started, I'm not claiming to be an expert in character design. This is not actually a fixing video, as they're sometimes called. This is just a redesign, kind of inspired by those like Lavender Town. If some of the time lapses seem a little wonky or clunky out of order, it's because I did rearrange them after recording them, so just bear with me. This is my first time doing a redesign whatever video. So what am I redesigning today? Well, I was doom scrolling on Twitter, as one does, when I came across this promo art for a new Netflix animated adult cartoon called Mating Season, and it's gonna be by the creators of Big Mouth. Just from the names attached to it and the name of it itself, I'm not super thrilled about this production. And overall, it doesn't visually look like a show that I would be interested in either. I don't know, it's just not my cup of tea. But I am a furry artist, shocker, and I have a bit of a special interest in character design and concept art. I actually wanted to go to school for that at one point, so I decided to give the characters another look over, give them a chance, and that's how I came up with the idea for this video. I have to let you know what my first impression of this was before I get into that, and my first impression was looking at the designs, really not vibing with them, and then looking to see that they were done by a Western adult animation studio with like the Big Mouth creators, and thinking, you know what? It honestly makes them look better. I don't know what this phenomenon is with adult animation in the West, but the best way I can put it is that they want to go for their own unique look that is also crude and vulgar in every single adult animation in the West, that it all ends up looking a particular way. And if you've seen any amount of adult animation, Western media, you know what I'm talking about. This isn't a bold take. I just want to make sure that I state that so that I can say that it feels like, for the most part, you can tell that these anthropomorphic forest creatures have not gone unscathed, but they've escaped it for the most part. It's a little bit of a backhanded compliment, I understand, but I have to say, I can tell they're done by a Western studio, but they feel like they have a little bit more uniqueness to them. They feel like what a lot of adult animation, like trying to acquire its own look that feels like its own. It feels like they might have accomplished this. They all feel uniform and in the same universe, but they feel like their own characters. They don't feel copy-paste. Starting off on the far right, we have the deer, whose shape language is hexagonal. She's very slim built with a necklace accessory. Gives the vibe that she's definitely supposed to be the more feminine of the girls, a little bit more of a girly girl. She has a relaxed face and open posture. She feels like an outgoing character without even knowing a name for her. The fox next to her is equally relaxed, but has her arms crossed out in front of her, which could be an indication that she's either more laid back or maybe more reserved. She's also shorter, but not necessarily the shortest of the cast. I feel like that's reserved to the raccoon. That's just personal bias, take it or leave it. Her shape language seems to be like an oval on top of a stick with her arms and her legs. And she has the jacket, the open jacket, which also gives her kind of an alternative feel. The girls are pushed a little bit more to the back than the guys are, which tells me that neither of them are the main characters, but they're still here in the poster art, so they have to play some sort of a role. So let's talk about the raccoon. He's on the far left side of the promotional art. He has kind of an open stance. His shape language is triangular. He's, in my opinion, the shortest of the cast. He has a mischievous face, and his colors are neutral. He's wearing shoes, and that makes me want to shoot him. And then we have the bear, who I feel like is the most in the center of the drawing, and this tells me that he's probably the main character. Even though the raccoon is more in the front, he's not in the center. It feels more like we're supposed to focus on Mr. Bear here, whose shape language is more rectangular. From the way that he's standing, the way that he's fidgeting with his hands, standing behind the raccoon, all of that, including his expression, translates into he's a very awkward, very shy character. He's not really happy to be in the current situation. Now, how does all this translate into a compliment? Again, this one poster is the only art we have of this show so far. This is the only thing I have to break down. And I was able to say this much about these characters from this one drawing. If you have to introduce a group of characters without giving little biography blurbs for each one, this is the way to do it. Now, what I don't like, I have to say most of them have at least one body proportion that feels really weird. Both of the girls' ears are way too big. The fox and the raccoon both have weird snout areas. And then the deer has this almost heart shape around her face that makes it look like she's wearing a mustard colored spandex suit. And then the raccoon, I don't like the raccoon. I really want him to take his shoes off. I really do not like the shoes. Also, I would give a pass to his limb and body proportions if they didn't have a character like the fox to show that they are capable of drawing a body type like the fox has, but they don't want to give that body type to the raccoon. I almost feel like the raccoon and the fox need to switch colors. It would be pretty funny if all my redesign was that I was just color switching the fox and the raccoon and said done. On to the actual redesign. I'm starting off with the deer, and I'm doing something first with her face that I don't see done for many girl deer characters in animation, mostly just guys, and I wanted to really highlight the chance to make her face angular and slim, and I played around with face framing hair. I wanted to keep her eyes large, but I still wanted them to be angular. I actually left out the eyebrows. She's the only character that I didn't give eyebrows. My main compliment for her design was that she's a very slender build, and I wanted to keep that and maybe even make her feel like she might be a model. When color swatching her, I realized she was much more neutral tone, so I decided to warm her up a little bit more, but that wasn't really working either, and I really wanted her to have that classic brown that deer in cartoons have. I made it look like her roots were starting to grow in, and maybe she needed to go get a touch-up done, and also a perfect opportunity if you're going to do a deer character and include the speckles is why not give them freckles? Why not just lean into it being freckles? I did change up her markings probably the most out of the 4 characters, and in my opinion for the better. So I almost went with a bikini top at first, and then realized I could just lean into her being a fashion girly Y2K, and so I gave her one of those butterfly tops. And then I also went with some low rise baggy pants to also complement this. Oh, and of course I did actually like the necklace, so I included the necklace. Since she has hooves, I didn't really feel like she needed shoes. With the shift in her having much more clear interests that I have given the options for, I feel like her personality has taken on a shift from being more relaxed to a little bit more bold. And with that, I feel like she would also go for more bold colors, being that she maybe experiments with wearing more neon colors, so I made the top very flashy, on top of it already being a unique top that usually has sequins and stuff on it. but I don't take her for a maximalist, so I did keep the pants a little bit simple, and a simple sash belt, and to add a pop of color. I knew what direction I wanted to take the fox girl, but I didn't at the same time. It was very interesting playing around with the idea of her in my head. At this point, I should also mention, it was very upsetting to notice that both of the boy characters had little tufts of hair on top of their head, but neither of the girls had any hair. And I have to mention that because, yes, I will defend that I gave the deer hair, and I will defend the hair that I put on this fox, especially with the direction that I ended up taking her in. I knew the general vibe that she was supposed to come off as maybe a little alternative. Eventually, I landed on her being a weeb. I wanted the fox to be much more hopeless romantic, almost. I wanted her to have a very dreamy face shape. I don't know how to describe it, but to go with that, she would need to have these face framing bangs. Now, not for a second did I think I was going to slim her down. I really like that she is a little bit of a bigger girl. In fact, I wanted to accentuate that a little bit more. I feel like they were a bit of a coward with her chest just being two little lines making a Y. I made her a little bit more full, and not to fan servicey levels, with a super tiny hourglass midsection as well. And then we have her legs. I feel like I made it to where it makes a little bit more sense while keeping that shape, because in the official art it looks like she's wearing socks like how Lucario looks. And I decided taking her already warm color palette and actually making it a little bit cooler, making the red a little bit more of a pinkish, just making her colors a little bit more romantic. Oh, I also initially had the pale pink on her torso and her head attached, but I decided to not have them attached so that it further accentuated this sort of upside down heart motif with her chest and give her the illusion of a double chin and make her face a little bit more rounded, not make her look taller. I wanted her to look a little bit more chubby on purpose, and not have this continuation. I'm not necessarily caring if it's like less flattering, just more focused on shape language by doing that. And then I went in and played around with the idea of her maybe wearing a loose top with a tank top underneath, and her bottom half eventually landed on a skirt, which I kind of had in mind already for her. And then the accessory that I took a risk on, but I'm not sure if it paid off, is I gave her one of those cat beanie things that I remember seeing a lot of at anime cons. I think it looks kind of weird with her head shape. I don't know, it looks weird. I don't regret it. I took the risk. I'm gonna keep it. She already has very bold colors, so her entire outfit is really only 3 or 4 colors. Next, we're on to the boys, and I'm starting off with the raccoon. Unfortunately, I did not get the first little bit of his time lapse. There wasn't much of an emphasis on his body type. I just really wanted to make sure it made a little bit more sense. So I just made him a little bit more boxy and his face a little bit more raccoony. And then I also gave him this cute triangular hair that almost looks like Tails from Sonic. And I'm not really ashamed to say that, yeah, he just looks like generic raccoon. That's perfectly I'm fine with that. He also has these triangle shaped shades that are just a permanent fixture on his character. I don't see him ever going around without them, honestly. So I didn't change up his colors that much. He's probably the character I changed the least of their color palette for. Then onto his clothes, I did end up going with this like skater boy streetwear. Honestly, he almost looks like Jesse Pinkman. Funny enough, I am planning on making the Breaking Bad cast personas in an upcoming video, but I wasn't planning on making Jesse a raccoon. I don't know, I think it's still a funny coincidence. So I gave him a tank top, baggy pants, super big puffy jackets, and multi-belt layering. And I decided to make all of the colors very vibrant, I guess would be the word. So like a mustard yellow and a wine red. He's already very big personality for the smallest character on the roster. I didn't want to make him feel even more full of himself or more of a loud, overbearing nonsense to look at, or to feel like he had a different type of sugar in his morning coffee. So we went with these muted colors just to bring him down a little bit. So now we're finally to Bear, who I stated earlier I think is the main character. But being that he's the main character, I feel like he is seriously lacking on personality and overall looks. Now, you can have a main character that you're supposed to put yourself in their shoes, and so you want them to look a little bit more generic, but he looks like he could be from any franchise, so I wanted to give him a very unique look. Now, where you can't really necessarily discern the ages of the other characters' redesigns, I did intend for them to look like they were maybe in their 20s, maybe not in their 30s, but the way that I redesigned him, he definitely looks like he's pushing 30. I don't know how else to say that, and I mean that in the most endearing way, that I love that you can tell that he has a little bit more age on him. Really, the only thing that makes him look a little bit older is because I gave him that circle around his mouth like Homer Simpson has, trying to emulate the shape of his muzzle that he already had in the original design, but just the way that I did it, it didn't come out the same. I really hyper focused on shape language with him, so much so that I also kept him pretty generic because there's only so much you can do with a rectangle. But something I did not mention in an earlier part of the video is that he has more than just rectangle to his shape language, because technically his whole body is just one rectangle. See, he also has line language where none of the other characters really have extra lines indicating that they have fat rolls or wrinkles or double chins, really. He has a little bit of a line implying a double chin. He has lines implying that he's creasing his brows. He has a line under his armpits. He's supposed to be a bigger boy, and this kind of leans into my favor with making him look like a little bit older on accident. The way that I had done his rectangular head shape was perfect for the standard cowlick you see on a main character, I felt like, and I felt like it was a really missed opportunity with his initial design. I did give him the little ears that he had in the original design and realized I'd put them a little bit too low. He almost looked like a monkey. So I ended up only having one ear visible and a little bit higher up. And then I made his cheeks a little bit chubbier, and I made it appear as though the collar of his shirt is creating like fat rolls on top of it, just to extra emphasize he's got the extra chub around that area. Or you could call it wrinkles if you, again, the idea that he may be like a little bit older. Overall, the rest of his features were pretty straightforward. I didn't really overcomplicate his design. The only thing that I was kind of sad about was I am not planning on making a 360 of these characters, because bears just have little nub tails, and his tail isn't going to be visible in this design. For his colors, I kind of did the same thing I did with the deer, where I wanted to make him warmer toned, and then realized I was going the wrong direction and ended up muting the colors a lot more. In fact, he's probably got the most muted, diluted colors of the cast. I made him look like he's almost in office attire, but he tried to dress up kind of fun by giving him a fun tie, and maybe the shirt is his favorite color. I even carried over the color from the little sash he's wearing in the official art to be the color of most of his. Overall, I feel like I kept his very shy and awkward demeanor. Final thoughts: these designs definitely serve their purpose. What is that purpose? I don't know yet. This is literally just me yapping. Do a counter for how many times I said language. So here we are. Here's the cast. Here they are without and then with their outfits. I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. They were already married pretty nicely, but I just really like that I took them another step. You can feel like they have a little bit more personality to them. And yeah, the only thing they're missing now is a name. So leave a comment and I'll let you guys pick the names for them. Thank you for watching this far, and let me know what you thought about this video and this format. I really enjoyed doing this. I've thought about doing something like this for a very long time. It's one of the things that made me want to start a YouTube channel. So let me know if you'd want to see more redesigns and making personas for other characters from media in the future. I think I already mentioned this in the video, but I am planning on doing a Breaking Bad lineup, and also my Ko-fi members did a vote, and the Death Note cast is also on the list to be made. Comment below if you have any other characters that you would like to see me make personas for, or maybe even redesign. Special thank you to my Ko-fi members. On the screen this month we have Big Dog Alan B and Siam S, and in the King of the Furries tier we have Vector S, Glowstick, and Whiskey. Seriously, thank you guys so much for your monthly support. And if you would like to join them and get special monthly rewards like monthly art and early access to content as well as other things, go to ko-fi.com/12thedoby and click on the membership tab to learn more. Bye-bye.